The mediator, the peacekeeper, the referee, the mayor, Mr. or Mrs. Popular. These are just some of the titles that you can definitely give to anyone with prominent Libra energy, and that includes Libra rising. I don't know about you, but I don't know anyone who has prominent Libra energy who's not popular in some way, shape, or form. And it makes sense, especially as a Libra rising. You guys are ruled by Venus. So Venus is your chart ruler. So of course, Venus is all about attraction and about beauty. So not only do you look aesthetically pleasing, right, but you're also attracting a lot of people. And because Libra is an air sign, you guys have the gift of gab, right? You guys know how to say something, when to say it, who to say it to, just in the right way, right? Which means you attract a lot of people. And so I think that when people think about Libra energy and Libra rising energy, you think about someone who's popular, someone who's out there, someone who talks a lot or whatever, right? But of course, there's always so much more than meets the eye, right? Like, I bet you didn't know that when it comes to Libra risings and their home and family life, they're not so gregarious and as popular as you may think that they are, right? Next, when it comes to romance, you may also be surprised to know that Libra is really attracted to eccentric types. Even though Libra is very popular and can really get along with most people, there's a very certain and specific type of person that Libra is typically attracted to. And then when it comes to career, right, as popular and as out there as Libras may be, they're a lot more sensitive when it comes to their career than you think. Now, one of the other sort of qualities of Libra energy and Libra rising energy is people pleasing. And I know that you don't necessarily like to hear that or talk about it because it's not necessarily one of the best traits to have, right? Libra can see both sides. So a lot of times people think that Libra doesn't take a side. Libra's indecisive. Libra sits on the fence. Libra wants everyone to get along, hence why people call Libra the peacekeeper. However, even though Libra is known for people pleasing, right, and doing all of that stuff, splitting the fence or whatnot, there's a very specific reason why they do this, and I bet you it will surprise you. All right, so if you want to know more about Libra rising in your natal chart, stick around. You definitely don't want to miss this. Hello, my loves. As always, I hope that this video finds you well and in excellent spirits. If it is our first time meeting, welcome. My name is Mel. I'm a professional astrologer, and I'm the founder of Divine Feminine Works, where I help people unlock their divinity and discover their magic. And as always, if you are returning, welcome back. So, we are keeping the party going with our Rising Sign series, and today we are talking all about Libra Rising. So, whether you are a Libra Rising or you're cross watching for that special Libra Rising in your life, you've come to the right place. But before I get into all of the juicy details, I just want to preface this by saying that this is all about the general characteristics of Libra rising, right? You've got Libra as your first house. And so all of this information is based on the other house placements in a Libra rising's chart, right? It doesn't take into account your personal planets and where those planets are placed in your natal chart. So that's why you may find that some of these characteristics make sense, others don't apply to you. It's because this is general, all right? These are just general characteristics that people that have Libra rising as their rising sign typically share. But of course, you may deviate from some of these things based on your natal chart. And if you want to know more about this deviation, if you want to know more about yourself and your natal chart, definitely book a natal chart reading with me. My signature service is called The Blueprint. Link is in the description box below. It is an excellent way to learn not only yourself, but your life as well. All right, so without further ado, let's get into the details of Libra rising. All right, so first things first, let's cover the basics. Let's talk about rising signs generally and what they can tell us. So, your rising sign is part of your big three, namely your sun, your moon, and your rising sign. And together, these three signs form the basis of your personality. All right, so your sun sign is all about your outward expression. Think about it this way: the sun shines. So, how you shine in the world is represented by your sun sign. This is sort of how you identify as yourself, right? The sun has a lot to do with our ego. So, it's a very subjective kind of energy when we're talking about our sun sign. Everything with your sun sign is external. It's all about how you shine in the world and how you project your personality onto the world. Then you have your moon sign, and your moon sign is all about internal energy. It represents your emotions, your subconscious, and your private life. So the things that you don't shine out into the world and project into the world, the things that you keep hidden, the things that really speak to your inner mechanisms, has everything to do with your moon sign. Now, again, this is also very subjective energy because your moon sign has everything to do with your emotions. So, how you feel and how you perceive the world, right? And how that perception makes you feel is governed by your moon sign. Now, when we get to our rising sign, it's a little different because whereas your sun and your moon signs are subjective energy, your rising sign is more objective because your rising sign represents how the world sees you. So rather than what you're projecting out there and what you feel, your rising sign is how everyone sees you and how everyone sort of categorizes you. Hence why it is objective. And your rising sign is like the sign that you wear that people read when they first meet you. So, in terms of the big three, your rising sign is not only just objective, it's really sort of what people first see when they encounter you. So, it has a lot to do with your physical appearance because your rising sign is your first house in your natal chart, in your astrological wheel. Hence, why a lot of people who are of the same rising sign tend to have similar features or physical characteristics. All right. So if you want to know more about the big three in astrology, did a video all about it. It's right here. Link will be in the description box below if you want to check it out. So now that we know sort of what your rising sign represents, what exactly is a rising sign? So, the rising sign is the sign that was rising on the eastern horizon at the moment that you were born. Think of it as your personal sunrise, and it represents your incarnation into this lifetime. It's your entrance literally into this world. And so it's really important to understand, well, maybe not understand, it's really important to know your exact birth time because your exact birth time is what determines your rising sign. And the rising sign changes every 2 hours. So there's a big difference between being born at 8 a.m. and even being born at 10:30 a.m., right? These could be two different signs. Hence why your precise birth time is essential. Now, when it comes to your rising sign, you'll hear people talk about rising and ascendant. Now, people usually use them interchangeably, but there is a slight nuance to the two. So, depending on what time you were born, there was a sign that was rising on the horizon. So, the sign itself is known as the rising sign. However, the exact degree of your rising, right, also known as your ascendant, is what is known as your ascendant. Again, when it comes to our rising signs, it's this objective way that the world sees us. Hence why a lot of people don't necessarily vibe with their rising sign because it's very objective. You may be someone who's really deep, especially like if you have, let's say you've got a Scorpio sun or maybe Pisces sun, right? You tend to be very deep, very spiritual, but maybe you have like a Gemini rising or like a Libra rising, which tends to be a little more on the superficial side. No shade, but that's just how the energy plays out, right? So, because people see you as someone who's just sort of superficial all over the place, not really concerned with depth, you may find that you have this like struggle, right, between how the world sees you and how you see yourself. And part of understanding your natal chart is sort of figuring out, or at least understanding that, like uncovering the fact that there may be a disconnect between how the world sees you and how you identify, and figuring out how to reconcile that. When you know better, you do better, right? And so your natal chart can tell you all of this. All right. So now let's get into more details about Libra rising specifically, and we will start with some of the main characteristics. All right. So, as a Libra rising, Libra is your first house in your natal chart. And the first house governs the self and the body. Hence why a lot of Libra risings tend to have the same physical characteristics. So, what are those physical characteristics, you may be asking? Well, it's important to understand that Libra is ruled by Venus. So, Venus being the planet of beauty, You guys tend to be conventionally beautiful, along with your sister sign, which is Taurus and Taurus rising, right? You guys are both ruled by Venus. So, when it comes to your physical attributes, you guys tend to be conventionally attractive. You've got dreamy, doe like eyes, typically an oval or heart shaped face. You guys may have dimples. You tend to have a curvaceous kind of shape, even if you are a man. It's not to say that you look feminine. It's just that when you think about Venus, aka Aphrodite, right, in Greek mythology, she was voluptuous. She had boobs, she had ass, she had hips, right? And so as a man, maybe you don't have those, but you have a nice curvature to your physical physique, right? To your physique, I should say, which makes you very attractive. So think of it this way. Libra risings kind of got really lucky. Not only do you have the gift of gab, you are conventionally beautiful and you attract a lot of people. So, hence why you usually know a lot of people, you got a lot of friends, your physical attributes kind of play significant role in all of that. Okay. Now, when it comes to your personality, you typically display the characteristics of Libra. So, again, Libra is an air sign, it's also a cardinal air sign. So, you guys are typically the ones to start a conversation. You don't have a problem going up to people and start talking, right? Venus is also a social sign. So, you guys love to socialize, you like to talk, you like to get together with people. One-on-one relationships is where you guys really shine, where you're able to really magnetize and even seduce the person that you are talking to or dealing with. Now, you guys are very diplomatic. Now, one of the better qualities of Venus is the idea of fairness, equality, and balance. So, you guys make great referees. You guys are great mediators, right? You guys are peacekeepers. You guys are great at settling disputes because you can see everything from each side. It makes great judges, or I should say, this energy makes great judges because, again, you can sort of see both sides and weigh both options, right? Now, the flip side of that is that you guys tend to be a little indecisive because you can see all vantage points. So it may be hard for you to make a decision, right? But you guys are diplomatic. You guys are gregarious, right? You definitely can talk up a storm, but you're not talking just to talk. I'd say that when it comes to the air signs and it comes to talking, talking just to talk would really be Gemini energy. You guys, as Libra, you have more substance to you and you're able to sort of rally people together. People are able to follow you. You kind of have natural leadership abilities because people gravitate toward you, right? And I feel like you're able to help people understand things, right? Especially with being able to see both sides of a situation. So you're great at communicating for the most part. You tend to be very popular. You like to socialize and you're conventionally beautiful. I mean, what else could you ask for, right? Now, again, this all depends on your planetary placements in your natal chart, right? Especially if you have Venus in your first house of Libra, or you have Venus making a positive aspect to your first house or to your ascendant, or any planets in your first house, you're probably extra, extra gorgeous. That's like supermodel kind of energy, right? Again, it all depends on the placements in your natal chart. So now that we talked about the main characteristics of Libra rising energy, let's get into some areas of life that pertain to someone with Libra rising. All right. So, when we want to know about the different areas of our lives as it pertains to our natal chart, we would look to the houses because the houses cover the different areas of life. Now, there are four houses in particular that kind of get a little more attention. They're known as the angular houses, and they get a little more attention because these are the houses that have the most dynamic energy. And if you want to know more about the houses in your natal chart, did a video all about it. It is here. Link will be in the description box below. Now, the angular houses are the first house, the fourth house, the seventh house, and the 10th house. So, we already talked about the first house as a Libra rising. It is Libra and it governs your physical attributes. Now, the fourth house covers home and family. And when I say home, wherever you call home, your physical location, family is typically your immediate family, specifically like your parents or your grandparents. Now, for Libra rising, your fourth house is Capricorn. Now, Capricorn is a very stern and serious kind of sign. It's very much uh concerned with discipline and structure, right? So when it comes to home, Libra risings tend to be a little stern, a little strict, especially if they are a parent or however their parents sort of raised them or treated them, may have been a very stern and strict kind of upbringing or a very stern and strict structure at home. So, as Libra rising, you're very much about structure at home. You're very serious, right? Saturn. Well, Capricorn is ruled by Saturn. Saturn is like the father figure. So there's a very patriarchal, sort of masculine energy when it comes to home and family for Libra rising. Next is going to be the seventh house, and that's the house of relationships. And by relationships, I mean your committed relationships and your partnerships. And for you as a Libra rising, your seventh house is Aries. Now, Aries, I'm not going to say is non committal, but Aries isn't necessarily concerned with longevity. Aries is very much about instant gratification. It's very much about sex, too. So, when it comes to relationships, like committed partnerships for Libra rising, not to say that they don't last, but they're very sort of visceral. They're very much concerned with sex, very much concerned about pleasure, desire, and instant gratification. You may also find that Libra risings, when it comes to relationships, specifically their committed relationships, they maybe tend to be a little selfish or headstrong, right? They may butt heads with their partners a lot because they're really concerned about their own needs and desires. No shade, just giving you the truth as it is, right? And then finally, the last of the angular houses is the 10th house, and this is the house of career. And for you, this is Cancer. Now, what's interesting is that, yes, Libra rising, that Libra energy, you're the mayor, you're popular, you have the gift of gab. But when it comes to your career, you're very sensitive and nurturing. So many of Libra risings may find it beneficial to go into like a career that has to do with taking care of people, like nursing or healing people, nurturing things, right? When it comes to career, you're committed to something and you nurture it to see it develop and grow. You also tend to be very sensitive about your career, right? And very defensive almost, even when anyone may attack it or say anything disparaging. You get sensitive and you kind of get on the defensive. However, that sensitivity and that nurturing can really help you uh, heal people, take care of people, nurture people, and help people grow and develop. All right. So now, when it comes to other areas of life that people are typically concerned with, it's typically money, relationships, and job. All right. So let's talk about money. So when we want to ascertain money in our lives as it pertains to our natal chart, there's two houses that we look toward. The second house, which is the house of personal finances, money, and material possessions. And then the eighth house, which is the house of shared resources and debt. So for you as a Libra rising, your second house is Scorpio. So when it comes to how you make money, some of you could make money illegally, not even going to front. That's very much a possibility with Scorpio as your second house. However, Scorpio has a lot to do with merging. So there's an element of partnership, there's an element of merging that has a lot to do with your personal finances. The best way I can sort of describe this is that personal finances belong to somebody else. So it could be a spouse, right? Maybe you're a trust fund baby or something like that. That's an excellent way for a Libra rising to have their own money, meaning that it comes from somebody else. Which is interesting because then we look to the eighth house, which has to do with other people's money and has to do with debt. And for you, your eighth house is Taurus. Now, Taurus is very much associated with money because it is ruled by Venus. So, when it comes to other people's money, you tend to attract other people's money. Now, Taurus is the eighth house, has a lot to do with finances, things like stocks and investments. And so you may find that when it comes to other people's money, you're using it as an investment vehicle. You're using it as seed money, perhaps for your own business or for a venture or a project or something like that. Accumulation is also a thing for you. And so, with the eighth house being the house of debt and it being ruled by Taurus for you, accumulation of debt is definitely a thing or may be a thing for you. Now, definitely be discerning as to the debt that you take on, but Nonetheless, I feel like taking on debt is something that you might not mind too much. All right. Now, let's talk about relationships. So, I'm going to talk about romantic relationships because that's typically what people want to know. And for romantic relationships, there's two different houses that we can look at. The first is the fifth house, which is the house of romance and self expression. And then the second is the seventh house, having to do with committed partnerships. Now, I already talked about the seventh house. So now let's talk about the fifth house, the house of romance. Now, the fifth house covers dating. So when you're not committed, when you're just playing the fields, when you're dating, you would look to the fifth house. And for you, as a Libra rising, your fifth house is Aquarius. So, like I alluded to in the intro, when it comes to romance, you guys are typically attracted to eccentric people. Aquarius energy is like alien energy, right? It's future looking, it's improvement, it's innovation, it's sort of otherworldly, it's out there. And as a Libra rising, that's exactly how you like your romantic partners. People who, I guess, march to the beat of a different drum. They're eccentric and maybe even exciting. And when you think about it, this kind of makes sense. As a Libra rising, like I said before, you guys tend to attract a lot of people. So you come in contact with a lot of people, right? And you can probably see the similarities amongst all of these people that you attract. And the fact that you are excited by and attracted to people who are different speaks to the fact that you want something out of the ordinary. And the ordinary for you is attracting a lot of people generally, right? And then again, we talked about your seventh house of committed partnerships is Aries, and we all know how that goes. All right. And then finally, let's talk about your job and your career. Now, your sixth house is the house that covers your job. And by job, I mean your daily routine, your 9 to 5, the service that you provide for others. Whereas your 10th house is your house of career. It's your overarching career, your vocation, your life's purpose. You get the point, right? Now, we already talked about the 10th house, and for you, that is Cancer, all about nurturing. But what about your fifth house? What kind of energy do you have when it comes to your daily routine and your 9 to 5? And for you, that is Pisces. So when it comes to career and job, notice that you have sixth house Pisces, 10th house is Cancer, both water signs. So you bring a lot of emotion, you bring a lot of emotional understanding to your daily job, your daily routine, and to your career. Now, Pisces is a sign that's all about selflessness and very much about service, perhaps charity work. So maybe you work for a nonprofit, maybe you work for a charitable organization, maybe the work that you do on a daily basis is in service to humanity. Maybe you work in the spiritual sense, right? Maybe you work at a church, or maybe your work has something to do with religion, right? Either way, this what you do on a daily basis is serving humanity as a whole. So again, I'm thinking some sort of big organization, charitable organization, nonprofit, things like that. But what I love about both your work and your career is that you infuse it with this element of emotional understanding and depth, even nurturing depth, emotional understanding, altruism, charity. Anytime you work, anything having to do with your career has these energy signatures, which I think is absolutely beautiful. All right. So now that we talked about all of that stuff, let's get into perhaps the character traits that you don't even know that you have. So, you know how before I was talking about your moon sign, right? And your moon sign has everything to do with your inner world, what you keep private. But even taking it a step further, we all have a side that's not only hidden to the world, but oftentimes hidden to us. You'll hear it known as your shadow. You'll hear it known by other names, right? But it is what we don't know about ourselves, what is hidden. And what is so interesting is that many of our actions and even many of our beliefs are really driven by this hidden side of us. Now, as a spiritual being, as someone who has spiritually awoken, as someone who is on a spiritual journey, understanding your hidden characteristics and your shadow side is top top tier, right? Like that's just something you have to do at this point in time. And so when it comes to understanding and recognizing your shadow self or your hidden side, in the natal chart it's represented by your 12th house. Okay? So as a Libra rising, your 12th house is Virgo. Now, I talked before about how Libra is very diplomatic, how Libra makes a great judge because they can see both sides, they're the referee, all that stuff. Those same characteristics also attribute to the fact that Libra energy is generally people pleasing. Now, like I said before, Libra is ruled by Venus. Venus is all about harmony. So, innate in Libra energy, specifically Libra sun and rising, is this energy of harmony, wanting to keep the peace, hence people pleasing. Now, it's not just the fact that Libra rising is ruled by Venus that makes it people pleasing, has a lot to do with the energy of the 12th house being Virgo. Now, if you haven't watched the other videos in this rising sign series, as a Libra rising, you'll want to watch Virgo rising because that will tell you all about your hidden characteristics. Now, what I mentioned in the Virgo rising video is that the reason why Virgo is so perfectionist and detail oriented was that in ancient times, uh, Vestal virgins, right, were charged with sort of maintaining the temple of Apollo. They worked in the temple of Apollo, and one of their main duties was to keep the fire burning. Now, if they didn't do it properly, or if the fire went out, the next time the fire was up, they were thrown into the fire, hence why they have this perfectionist nature. Now, this is one of your hidden characteristics. So, everything being perfect and in harmony with everyone speaks to your Virgo 12th house, right? So underneath, you may be very nitpicky. You may be very discerning. You may be very detail oriented, maybe a little OCD. However, if that hidden side is left unchecked, that people pleasing can go to the next level because Virgo wants to get it right. Virgo wants to get it perfect. And so having everyone be in perfect harmony, having everyone like each other may be the driving force in what you believe and how you act. And when anything falls short of that perfectionist, people pleasing harmony, it likely will wreak havoc in your life. And so understanding why you have this need for perfection. And inherent in that Virgo energy of perfection is understanding that things will never be perfect. And we have to be comfortable with being perfectly imperfect. And so, as a Libra rising, integrating your shadow side is striving for perfection, striving for harmony. We definitely need more harmony in this life, but understanding that that's not always the case. And you'll understand this even more so by looking at your seventh house of relationships. Your seventh house of relationships, your one-to-one relationships is Aries. Aries is the planet of war. So you understand what it's like to go to war with someone. You understand what it's like to be in a partnership and have conflict because your needs need to be addressed, or you're really only thinking about your own needs and desires, right? So understanding that energy will help you kind of work with that perfectionist, people pleasing attitude, right? See how much you can gain by just looking at those two houses in your natal chart. When I tell you your natal chart is everything, it is literally everything, right? So what you don't know about yourself is that you guys take that people pleasing to the next level because it's got to be just perfect in that very Virgo sort of way. All right. But once you integrate that and understand it, now you can operate optimally, understanding that there is no perfection and there isn't always peace. All right, my loves. So that concludes this video on Libra Rising. I will leave the link to the Rising Sign series playlist so you can check out all of the other videos. That will be in the description box below. And speaking of description box below, that's where you can find all the information on my products and services, including my signature service called The Blueprint, which is a natal chart reading, which will help you understand yourself from soup to nuts. And currently it is $50 off. So that link is in the description box below, as well as tagged to this video. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you in my next video. Take care.